If you're a fan of world-changing war stories, like this video now and comment below which city you're watching from, so I know where my stories are going. Imagine a turquoise sky over the Pacific Islands, a breathtaking landscape that became the stage for the most brutal conflict in history. Amidst this vastness, something strange, almost alien, began to appear on radar and, soon after, in the skies. Have you ever wondered how an enemy reacts when seeing a revolutionary weapon for the first time, something that seems to have come from another world? For Japanese pilots, accustomed to the agility of their Zeros and the ferocity of their fighters, the first encounter with the P-38 Lightning was not just a combat. It was the shock of a new era, a portent that war in the Pacific would never be the same again. Prepare to uncover the little-known secret of the P-38 that stunned the Japanese, a story of innovation, mystery, and psychological impact that redefined the conflict. At the beginning of World War II, especially in the Pacific Theater, the Empire of Japan was a dominant air force. Its experienced and fearless pilots flew aircraft like the legendary Mitsubishi A6M-0, which, with their exceptional maneuverability and long range, swept the skies, leaving the Allied forces at a disadvantage. The United States, fresh from the attack on Pearl Harbor, faced a stark reality. It needed a response, something that would not only match but surpass the Japanese threat. They needed a fighter that could fly higher, faster, and with overwhelming firepower. But more than that, they needed something that could instill fear, something the Japanese had never seen before. What was the turning point that forced the Allies to innovate so radically, even in the face of such consolidated enemy superiority? It was in this context that Lockheed introduced the P-38 Lightning to the world, a machine that defied all conventions of the time. Unlike traditional single-engine fighters, the Lightning had a bizarre and futuristic design. 2 engines and 2 thin fuselages that joined a central gondola, where the pilot sat, and where all its weapons were concentrated. While the Japanese Zero was light and agile, the P-38 was a metal beast, weighing almost twice as much, yet capable of impressive speeds for the time, exceeding 660 km/h at altitude. Its armament was devastating. 4 50-caliber machine guns and a 20mm cannon, all mounted in the nose, ensuring unparalleled concentration of fire. Compare this to the more dispersed firepower of fighters of the time. What would you do if you were a Japanese aeronautical engineer seeing this machine for the first time, knowing it could change the course of the war? Despite its revolutionary appearance, the P-38's path to combat was arduous and fraught with challenges. The twin-engine design, while offering redundancy and power, posed numerous engineering problems. The aircraft suffered from vibrations, engine failures, and a dangerous aerodynamic characteristic in high-speed dives known as compressibility, where control surfaces lost their effectiveness, leading to fatal accidents. Engineers and test pilots worked tirelessly, risking their lives to refine every aspect of the design. They tested new wings, new control surfaces, and even invented dive brakes to mitigate compressibility. Think of a time in your life when a surprise changed everything, like an unexpected challenge at work or in a game. That's how the engineers and pilots felt as they tried to master this revolutionary machine. But every failure was a lesson, every accident an impetus for improvement, transforming a troubled prototype into a formidable weapon of war. When the P-38 finally arrived in the Pacific Theater in 1942, the impact was immediate and brutal. Japanese pilots, accustomed to facing American fighters like the P-40 Warhawk or the F-4F Wildcat, which were slower and less armed than their Zeros, were caught off guard. The first time they saw the Lightning, with its unusual devil's fork, or two-tree shape, many were at a loss. It was incredibly fast, climbed to unimaginable heights, and when it attacked, its firepower was so concentrated that it disintegrated enemy aircraft in seconds. Initial reports from Japanese pilots were of astonishment and confusion. They couldn't believe that such a large aircraft could be so fast and lethal. What would their reaction be when faced with something so different and superior on the battlefield? The legend of the Two Tails, as the Japanese began to call it, was just beginning to be written in the skies over the Pacific. The initial shock soon gave way to a grim understanding, and finally, a grudging respect tinged with fear. Japanese pilots, once undisputed masters of the skies, began reporting the apparent invincibility of the Two Tails. They learned the hard way that attempting to outmaneuver a P-38 was suicide. Their strategy of close-quarters dogfights, where the Zero reigned supreme, was ineffective against an aircraft that could simply dive at breakneck speeds, unleash its devastating burst, and climb back up, out of reach. It was like fighting a ghost, too fast to catch, too powerful to ignore. Japanese combat manuals were quickly updated with new guidelines on how to avoid, or at best survive, an encounter with the lightning. They began calling it the fighter that never returns, a reference to its ability to return to base even with one engine damaged, something unthinkable for most single-engine aircraft of the time. Which city are you watching this video from? Comment below and tell me if you've heard a similar story from your family about wars or innovations that changed everything. This forced adaptation wasn't just tactical. It was an admission that the balance of power was shifting. The Japanese, who had previously viewed the P-38 as an aberration, now recognized it as a lethal threat. They witnessed the disappearance of their aces and the destruction of their formations, all at the hands of this strangely designed fighter. How do you think this shift in perception impacted the morale of the Japanese troops, who had previously considered themselves superior? And what would you do if your years-proven strategy were suddenly ineffective against a new threat? The P-38's superiority lay not only in its technical specifications, but in the way the Allies learned to exploit them. While the Japanese clung to the doctrine of maneuverable air combat, Lightning pilots developed and perfected the boom and zoom tactic, attack and climb. This strategy suited the P-38 perfectly. It would dive at high speed on its enemies, fire its cannon and machine guns with deadly accuracy, and, using its power and climb capability, return to the heights, leaving the slower and less powerful Zeros behind. It was a game of cat and mouse, in which the P-38 always held the advantage in speed and altitude. This tactical approach not only maximized the Lightning's strengths, but also exploited the weaknesses of the Japanese fighters, which were lighter and optimized for tight turns at low altitudes. The P-38's ability to operate at high altitudes for long periods and its extended range allowed bomber escort missions deep into enemy territory, a task nearly impossible for other fighters of the time. This forced the Japanese to expend valuable resources trying to intercept previously untouchable Allied formations. Can you imagine the frustration of a Japanese pilot, trained for dogfighting, seeing an enemy that refused to fight on his terms? How would you adapt your strategy if the battlefield shifted so drastically against you? The P-38 was not just a war machine, it was a psychological weapon. Its unusual silhouette, nicknamed the Devil's Fork or Two Tails by the Japanese, was a harbinger of death in the skies over the Pacific. The sight of an approaching lightning, with the drone of its twin engines and the glare of its concentrated fire, instilled profound fear. For Japanese pilots, often exhausted and with limited resources, facing the P-38 was like battling a supernatural force. The fighter was so fast that many reported feeling as if it appeared out of nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. This unpredictability undermined confidence and morale. Rumors of its capabilities, often exaggerated by the stress of combat, spread quickly. Stories of P-38s returning to base with damage that would have brought down any other aircraft only fueled the legend. This psychological impact was a crucial factor in changing the course of the air war in the Pacific. The P-38's technological and tactical superiority not only destroyed aircraft, but also broke the spirit of enemy pilots. Have you ever felt the pressure of a seemingly invincible opponent, whether in a sport, a professional challenge, or even a game? What does that do to your mind, your resolve? The psychological impact, coupled with its technical and tactical superiority, solidified the P-38 Lightning not only as an exceptional combat aircraft, but also as a living legend in the skies of the Pacific. Its versatility was unmatched. It operated as an air superiority fighter, a long-range bomber escort, a fighter bomber, and even as a photo reconnaissance aircraft, with unarmed but incredibly fast versions that flew over enemy territory untouched. The Two Tails was not only the terror of Japanese pilots, it was instrumental in some of the most crucial missions of the war, including the famous Operation Vengeance, which culminated in the interception and downing of the plane of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of the attack on Pearl Harbor. This mission, flown at extreme range and with surgical precision, unequivocally demonstrated the range and lethality of the P-38, cementing its reputation as a devil among the Japanese and a hero among the Allies. And so, the P-38 Lightning became a symbol of how innovation, even if initially seemingly bizarre or impractical, can completely redefine a conflict. It forced the Japanese to abandon established tactics, revise their combat manuals, and above all, confront a reality where their once unquestionable air superiority had been challenged and surpassed. The story of the P-38 is proof that, in combat, adaptability and the search for unconventional solutions are as crucial as individual bravery. It is the saga of a machine that not only destroyed enemy aircraft, but also broke the spirit of its opponents, leaving a lasting legacy in the history of military aviation. In the end, the Two Tails became more than an aircraft. It was a harbinger of a new era in aerial warfare. If you enjoyed uncovering the secrets of the P-38, how about we explore the history of the B-29 superfortress and the terror it inspired in Japan, or perhaps the saga of the German U-boats and the Battle of the Atlantic, or even the evolution of the Soviet T-34 tanks that shocked the Nazis. Let us know in the comments which of these stories you'd like to see next. Thus, the legend of the P-38 Lightning echoes through history, a reminder of the power of innovation and perspective. If you want more untold stories of aviation or war legends, be sure to subscribe to the channel now and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. Share this video with a history-loving friend, and let's continue exploring the secrets of the past together.